We've seen a lot of conversation recently around free speech in general. One of the most notable actions was when we saw the Federal Communications Commission chair, Brendan Carr, on a podcast referencing we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and talking a lot about comments that comedian Jimmy Kimmel had made on a late night show. Shortly thereafter, what we saw was that ABC canceled that show. There's a lot of questions about, was this a market forces reaction or was this government jawboning? And I think many free speech scholars, myself included, are greatly concerned about what this may represent in terms of government jawboning, the power of government officials to engage in a form of censorship, not necessarily by directly requiring a program be removed, but by indirectly indicating that a program's disfavored, indicating that they may look at things like a broadcast station's licensing or at other deals that a parent company may be involved in, and what the consequences of that are for free speech, free press, and for all of us in a society. In addition to the FCC comments, we saw Attorney General Bondi saying that she would prosecute hate speech, something that doesn't exist in the U.S. as a category of speech, and something that would actually go very against what Charlie Kirk had been saying. He has several comments talking about why he considers hate speech laws so problematic, how they could be abused, and things like that. So there is a sense of irony that when we're seeing responses to what is a great tragedy, a tragedy of political violence during someone exercising their rights to free speech and free expression, that at times we're seeing the government call to rein in those very rights of free speech and free expression. We've long seen that Europe has had a different approach when it comes to free expression, an approach that allows much more government intervention, and something that I think would concern many Americans, whether it's European hate speech laws that oftentimes can include speech that would be more generic in political discourse and can allow governments to determine what can and can't be said, whether it's things like the DSA, the Digital Services Act, that we see enforced against American companies. For example, when Elon Musk was looking at potentially hosting a debate on Twitter with then candidate Donald Trump, and we saw European threats over potentially regulating the information in that debate. Are we starting to see that concerning erosion come here to the US? And how will the First Amendment respond in those kind of stress test scenarios? I think there's reason to be optimistic that the First Amendment can weather the test of time and can weather constitutional challenges. But I do think it's also important that we really recognize why we need to cherish those values and why we need to cherish them not only for people that we may agree with, but for people that we disagree with. That once the government has the power to regulate speech, that will be very difficult to rein in or get back, because it will push aside one of our key ways of engaging in discourse, of engaging in important conversations about what the government is doing. Oftentimes, what we see being really difficult is that there are so many factors that go into these editorial decisions that proving that causal link to really challenge this under the First Amendment can be difficult in court. That goes to why we saw a loss in the Murphy v. Missouri case, where the plaintiffs were determined not to have standing because they couldn't prove the causal link between their content being taken down and the fact that the government had pressured social media platforms to engage in certain behavior. We've also seen this come up in other contexts, though, where the court has ruled in favor of the private entity, the most notable being a recent case involving the NRA and access to various services, where the courts did say no, that they had a right to access the service free of kind of government pressure to deny them in the NRA v. Vulo case. So we've seen a lot of questions of kind of where is that line drawn? And I think what has happened in this case is for many Americans, this has appeared to be very transparent. While we know this sort of political pressure, this sort of government pressure often goes on, it appears to be very clear to them the kind of, we see these comments and then we see this action that for many people appears to cross that line.